Inferno Volcano Margherita Megamax! Omatase!
The Inferno Volcano Megamax Margarita pizza from Promare is a spicy boy, and we're making it right now. Now I'm going to be making 2 of these pizzas because I have some people coming over. So I'm going to need 720 grams worth of all-purpose flour, 14 grams worth of salt. Give this a quick mix with your hands just to make sure that salt is incorporated into that flour. Now heat up 480 milliliters worth of water to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and then add 8 grams worth of yeast to that and give it a good forking. Let it rest for 10 minutes and then slowly start adding this to your flour and your salt mixture. I like to add this slowly to start hydrating my dough without working too much gluten in initially. This is going to give you a nice crumbly crust later. The final thing is adding in 8 grams worth of oil of choice. I'm just using some nice olive oil. Now slowly start bringing this together into a shaggy mess, trying not to actually form too much gluten like we mentioned earlier. This is going to give you that nice tender crust you really want. After everything starts to come together by itself, this is when you can start kneading the dough in the bowl. You can also use a stand mixer, but since mine is being packed away for now, I'm doing all of this by hand. Once you have sort of a rough mass, form this into a ball, place it back into the bowl, and let it rest for 2 hours or doubled in size. While it's resting, grab a can of San Marzano tomatoes and, of course, some scorpion chili paste. Feel free to use some fresh habaneros, some jalapenos, whatever chili you want, but we want this to be spicy. And as you can see from opening this can, Gandalf has been summoned. Place your can of tomatoes into whatever container you have, followed by just a small portion of your chilies of choice to start. The scorpion chili is super spicy, so I'm using just about 2 grams worth. Give this a good poke just to make sure it's in there, and then immersion blend this to make sure all of it's fully incorporated. Give this a taste, realize it is very spicy, and this is going to be perfect for your tomatoes. Now once you're done blending everything together, throw a lid on it and keep it cold in the fridge until we're ready to make this pizza. This is actually going to taste really good the next day. Now our dough has doubled in size, and you can see when I pull it away from the bowl, this is ready to go. You want this nice elasticity to it, and it just feels so good, like oppai. Place this on a lightly floured surface, and then roll the dough back into itself, forming another boule. I like using the stitching method where I bring the outside in. This helps tighten up the dough significantly, and it also makes it easier to roll out on your cutting board. Once you have your dough nice and rolled up, trying to get it fairly tight but not too tight to where you see any of the dough rip on top. Place a bowl over the top of this and let this rest for another 2 hours until doubled in size. Mine got so big I actually had to place a towel over it instead, and I did end up having a blowout that we were able to fix. Now since this recipe does make 2 pizzas, you can cut the recipe in half, or if you're making 2 pizzas, we're just going to roughly cut up both of the pieces of dough. Once you have your dough cut and somewhat portioned, this is when we're going to start forming our first pizza shell. I like to start off by doing it by hand and just kind of getting a rough shape with just a small amount of flour. We don't want to use too much flour. Once I have that rough shape, I start letting gravity help pull this dough apart to not only form the crust, but also to thin out that dough into around a 15 to 16 inch pie. Anything bigger than that and the crust is going to be too thin, and you're not going to get too much air in that beautiful crust. Now to make life easy, grab your pizza paddle and line the semolina flour or just regular flour if you don't have semolina. Place your dough onto your pizza paddle, making sure it is nicely stretched out. Then drizzle some olive oil on top of that dough and brush it on as evenly as possible. You might have to eyeball this. I didn't really pay attention to how much oil I was using, but you don't want to saturate it either. Now grab your scorpion chili pizza sauce, give this a nice slathering, and again, the amount of pizza sauce you want to use is totally up to you. I like mine well sauced for the most part, so I like to make sure it's fully sauced. Sprinkle it with some flaky salt, and then grab your mozzarella. I'm using a local mozzarella for this from Cheesemonger in Portland, or feel free to make your own, which I failed at multiple times. Place down giant chunks of mozzarella all over that pizza, and then hit this with some halved cherry tomatoes. The reason why it's cherry tomatoes and not whole tomatoes is simply because that's what they had used in the movie. And then next up is going to be some fresh picked basil. After hitting your fresh picked basil onto this pizza is ready to go into the oven. I had a pizza stone ready to go in my oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit, just so that way the pizza would get super crispy. If you don't have a pizza stone, feel free to just use a sheet tray. Make sure that pizza is loose before trying to get it on the stone, otherwise you're going to end up with a mess, and luckily I did not end up with a mess this time, guys. Can I get claps in the chat? Thank you very much. Pop the pizza into the oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit and let it go for about 15 minutes. Oh, wait a second. We forgot the black olives. There was definitely black olives on this pizza, and now we're like 2 minutes into cooking, and you can see my face is very distraught, but it's all good. After those 15 minutes, your pizza is ready to go, aside from those black olives that kind of just went everywhere, but it's okay. We're going to roll with it. with it. I like to let my pizza rest on the stone for just a minute or two and then remove it from the stone, placing it on some parchment paper, and this pizza is ready to go. I'm cutting mine into 8 equal-ish portions, but feel free to just roll the whole thing in half, go to town. I don't care what you do with your pizza. Cut it into squares, rectangles, but I went with the traditional route. And there it is, the Inferno Volcano Margarita Megamax pizza from Promare. There it is, guys, the pizza from Promare. It's the Volcano Megamax something. It's just such a, here, it's right here. It's right here. Here's the name of it. This looks absolutely phenomenal. It's basically a spicy margarita with black olives, but for the spice, we use the scorpion chili, so feel free to use whatever you want. This dough looks so crispy. Look at the, can you see the bottom? Can you see that? Look at, yes. Cheers.
Do I drive out to Hillsborough?
It's not overly spicy. The crust is perfectly crispy. The cheese is fantastic. The black olives are salty. The tomatoes are still slightly undercooked, which is really nice. This is a fantastic pizza. Oh my God. The only thing more fantastic than this is checking out the merch at CHEFPK.com. My name is Chef PK. Get subscribed. And remember, keep playing with your food. I have to make another pizza though. We got 2 pizzas tonight.